Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're going to give everyone about 30 seconds before we actually start. We see the participant number is rising, which is fantastic. We're super happy to have you today. We're excited to be sharing tips and tricks. I should have put it right for a strong GSFP application submission for AHI's GSFP program. So we'll start in about 30 seconds, if that's okay. Welcome, bienvenido. We're so happy to have you. All right, so I see that number kind of slowing down. And of course, as folk come in, just, we'll keep on going. The webinar is going to be recorded. It's being recorded, so that if you or anyone that you may know in your community would like the information that we're going to share in regards to the GSFP app, you can always go back. We'll have it listed on our website, which we'll be sharing throughout the presentation, and social media accounts will direct you on how to access it. But okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Hola a todos and welcome. We're so excited you decided to join us today for our very first AHI Graduate Student Fellows Program webinar on how to submit a strong Graduate Student Fellows Program or GSFP application. I'm Stacey, the co-chair of the GSFP. I go by she, her, ella pronouns. And we have a jam-packed schedule for you today with some awesome GSFP alum. And we're also committed to making this session as interactive and engaging as possible. So we've set aside the second half for a dedicated Q&A to ensure that you have the opportunity to ask any questions. So please don't hesitate to bring up anything you'd like to know more about, more clarity on, or any specifics that could help strengthen your application. I'll begin by walking y'all through the timeline and logistics. My cohort sis Mitzi will unpack writing tips and positionality. Veronica, Dominga, Amy, and Jasmin, our invited GSFP alum, will share some reflections, and then we'll get right into Q&A. All right, so next slide. First, let's talk about our new timeline. This year, for the first time, we're opening applications earlier in the academic year, with the application period running from January 6th to March 31st. We made this shift for a couple of reasons. One, we wanted to align more closely with other fellowship cycles, giving you a chance to plan ahead. And two, by moving the timeline to the start of the semester, we hope to give applicants a chance to focus on their applications during a more active part of the school year rather than at the end when other commitments can pile up. Selections for the 2025-2026 cohort will be made by May 30th, and our fellowship programming begins in September of 2025. For those interested, here's the link that takes you directly to our GSFP page where the full program schedule and key dates are available. Now, let's cover some logistics. The GSFP program is not a full year funding fellowship, but it does provide significant support, networking, and professional development within a cohort-based environment. Each fellow receives a 1,100 stipend to use for travel, lodging, meals, and transportation for the AHI annual conference in March. This stipend aims to reduce financial barriers and support your participation in one of the most valuable aspects of the fellowship, which is the annual conference. As for the program itself, Our primary goal is to prepare Latina doctoral scholars for successful careers in the academy, but we also recognize the value of building skills that are essential for careers in administration and policy within higher ed. Our program goals include offering strategies to help you meet your professional and educational objectives, providing constructive feedback on your research, and helping you build a network within a supportive community of Latinx scholars. Because we are committed to broadening our program's representation, I'd like to get into our selection process. The GSFP is intentionally cohort based and designed to build a supportive, inclusive network of peers and mentors. Mitzi, you could go ahead and click the next two. We're also expanding our focus on representation within the program. Historically, we've had an overrepresentation of Mexican or Mexican American heterosexual higher education scholars, primarily from California, Texas, and Arizona. We're working to diversify this representation by also factoring in gender, sexuality, region, institution type, discipline, and program year, amongst other things. To set realistic expectations, please note that applicants are competing for limited spots, especially within certain disciplines. In the past, we've selected 12 fellows total. However, this is broken up into 4 disciplines: higher education, K through 12 education, social sciences, and STEM, with only 3 seats for each discipline. Therefore, it is highly competitive. So think about what sets you apart, particularly within the context of your field and background, and use that to build a compelling case for your application. Again, the link on the slide will take you to the GSFP page on the AHI website, where you'll find more details on all of this information. We hope this overview helps as you get ready to submit your applications. Thank you again for being here, and let's dive into writing tips and positionality con mi cohort sis, Mitzi.
Hello, everyone. Very quickly, I don't want to take up too much time, but my background is in rhetoric and composition studies. So basically, I study writing and I study the teaching of writing. So that's the perspective from which I kind of take as I'm giving y'all some advice as you're working on those applications. Um, I think one of the most important things, again, is an awareness of your own positionality, your own identity, and how that will play into the cohort that you're a part of, right? Um, the goals and values and motivations of AHI have to do with our own community, right? So we're looking for people that are active within their community, that will be taking the work outside of academia and into their own communities, so on and so forth. What that means is that just identifying as Latinx, Latina, what have you, Hispanic, isn't quite enough, right? We can all be Latino and still not be touching on that critical work. That's not to say that your research like directly like has to do with those topics. I know when I applied to AHI, my research wasn't particularly, but it's that we have an understanding of who we are to be where we are at doing the work that we're doing. Um, so as an example, my work is on settler colonialism and white supremacy in Idaho. And so my application was all about how I'm from Idaho, which is a very white dominant state, and I myself am like a white Tina, I'm very white passing, and that all of that influences the work that I do and how I interact with my community. Some other kind of quick tips. Make sure that you are answering all of the prompts and that you're using the full word count and page count that we give you. A lot of the times when we're reading through applications, and there's a lot of applications that we sift through, we end up with questions at the end where we're saying, I want to know more about this study, or I want to know why this person does what they're doing, or the impacts of their work. And sometimes when we have those questions left over, the application wasn't even like using up all of the allotted space. So really make sure that you're slowing down, explaining all of the work that you're doing, and using all of those resources given to you. By that same token, for me and for many other people on the selection committee, we want to hear from you, maybe a little more than we want to hear from whoever's writing your letter of recommendation. If we read your application and we have no idea like what your research is, and we have to wait for the letter of recommendation to find that out, that's a little bit of a problem because then we're not finding that out from you in your words, but from the person who is recommending you. Again, audience awareness, we are very interdisciplinary. We all come from a variety of different backgrounds. So make sure that as you are breaking down your work, that you're doing so in a way that we can all access, right? Again, we all sift through a lot of applications. It is a highly competitive process. And so just make sure that you're communicating that fully to your audience. And then lastly, very briefly with that letter of recommendation, make sure that you are asking somebody that knows you and that you trust. A bad letter of recommendation kind of rocks the boat a little bit, and there's all kinds of politics involved in that, we know, but you really want somebody who can speak to who you are and what your work is accomplishing. And again, make sure that whoever's writing your letter of rec also understands what it is that you're applying for, who Ahi is, the work that we're doing, the direction that we're going in, so that they can help speak to how you will help bring us into that direction. Um, this is kind of a different fellowship program than some of the other ones that are out there. We have very specific goals and tasks that we're trying to achieve. So make sure that your application and your letter of rec are kind of working together as a solid unit, so that we're accomplishing all of those things. All right, that's all I had. Veronica, you want to start us off?
Yes. Sorry. So my name is Veronica Gonzalez. I use they, she pronouns. I'm currently a research assistant professor at the University of South Carolina in the Department of Criminology and Criminal Justice. I participated in the program last year, and I found it extremely helpful. So they gave us a couple of questions that I'm going to go through. But I echo everything that Mitzi had said about the application process itself. And before I forget, I really want to go back to that recommendation letter writer that you pick. I suggest, if you feel comfortable, that you share your application materials with them so they can write a very cohesive letter to the materials that you are submitting, and that you're all both telling the same narrative and feeding off each other. Having said that, I'm going to go back and read some of the questions. So we were asked to share what were some of the challenges that we faced during the application process and how we navigated them. So one of the main challenges I faced during the application process was articulating my research in a way that connected both personally and academically with AHI's mission. So my research focuses on intimate partner violence and gender-based violence in rural and Latina communities, which involves culturally nuanced topics that may be unfamiliar or misunderstood outside of the community-centered spaces. And to navigate this, I focus on bridging my research with broader social and educational goals, highlighting its relevance to the challenges facing Latina communities, while underscoring its broader implications for social justice and equity. I also sought to seek feedback from colleagues who were familiar with similar fellowship applications, which helped me to refine the narrative and sharpen the focus of my statement. This meant that I reworked my statements several times, so starting early is really helpful. How did you address your unique background and positionality in your application? So in my application, I approach my background as an asset that informs my research and strengthens my academic goals. So as a first-generation college graduate with a migrant background, I emphasize how my lived experiences with cultural, social, and economic barriers has shaped my research questions and helped fueled my commitment for social justice. I also discussed my personal encounters with IPV, acknowledging that how this positionality drives my work and is deeply personal, while maintaining academic rigor and respect for the experiences that I study and the communities that I study. I use this opportunity to highlight how my background aligns with AHI's values and goals, and how it positions me to contribute a unique perspective to the academic community. And specific advice I have for applicants, my advice is to remember that AHI's audience values work that not only advances scholarship, but also impacts and uplifts the Latina community. It's crucial to demonstrate how your research addresses pressing issues or opens doors for marginalized voices within academia and society as a whole. So try to frame your work as part of a larger narrative that supports social equity and community resilience, showing clear line between your work's academic contributions, but also its practical impact. Be specific about how your research addresses gaps or challenges that affect Latina communities, and use language that conveys your commitment in this mission. And if you can speak about your past experiences of actually implementing this work, I think it can be a really good asset. So in what ways has being a fellow impacted my career and my research? Being a fellow was transformative both in my career and my research, but I think the biggest asset is the network and community that I found myself with. I still connect with my peers. We have a group chat, and I am able to vent to them the things that I'm encountering now that I am in an academic position. And it's so helpful to know that you have people around you that understand what you're going through, but also like it allows me kind of to let them know what might be waiting ahead when they make this transition. So I really find this space has been invaluable in so many ways, and I'm so grateful to have had this space and to know these wonderful people that are in the panel today. So with that, I want to close and pass it on to the next person. Thank you.
Hello, buenos días, buenas tardes, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Dominga Sanchez, she, her, ella. My title is a bilingual STEM education outreach and equity specialist. My technical background is in civil engineering, so my PhD is in civil engineering. My undergraduate is also in engineering. I focused on engineering education, and I am not as organized as Vero here with the questions, but I will try to recap and provide some information with the questions. The challenges and how I navigated the application. I think that for me, the challenges, I have a STEM background, and understanding how to translate the more technical language to a non-technical language to me was the most challenging. I did have support outside of my committee to write this application process, to help me brainstorm and think about the questions that's being asked. It was a process. The way that I wrote my statements, where I took out what was the ask and put them in a sheet, and it had it very structured. And then I was told, well, that's not really you. It's where's your voice? Where is who you are? And I had to go back and revise and look at it and make sure that Dominga was present in there, not Dominga the engineer, but Dominga the person. So that's something that is very hard for me, because it's very hard to talk about yourself and like highlight yourself and say all the great things that you do. So I recommend you start practicing that because you're going to need it for future bios, right? How do you celebrate yourself and help yourself shine? That was for me one of the challenges. The other question was, how did you address positionality in your research? So my research explored the power of participation, and it was focused on inspiring stories of engineering undergraduates, navigating professional engineering student organizations, and how they were challenging structural norms. I was the only Latina here in the lab space, the graduate lab space. And it was very hard for me to find community. But at the same time, my background, being a first generation, being a Latina, being a single parent, all of that I use as an asset to be able to understand what our undergraduate students are trying to communicate. I did recognize that not all students, not all engineering students are going to be parents, right? I was a transfer student, community college transfer student, and that there are some differences. But at the same time, that also gave me uh, the space to connect with them, right? That connection part was very important to me because I learned that the first time of like an interview, it was just answering the questions straight to the point, just like writing the application. But the second time, the third time, when we started talking more about what do we like to do for fun, how are we going to celebrate las posadas? Once you start opening up those doors, there were more serious conversations. And so that to me was important. So the positionality that I came across. Um, and then let's see, advice for applicants. Start early writing your application, the application process. It's very competitive, and it's competitive for a reason. The experience that I had with AHI was amazing. It came at a point in my academic career path when I was feeling very isolated in my environment, and there was no one to talk to about community or cultural affairs or even what's going on with our local Latino community in engineering. And so, you know, being in this space, having that brave space, as they call it, to be vulnerable, to talk about issues that are not talked about with your advisor. That to me was very important because I started to validate my emotions, what I was going through, and that it was definitely not normal, right? And so I think that being part of the AHI community gave me the strength that I needed to continue moving forward to finishing both my master's and my PhD. Um, but it's really about building community and having this familia to be able to vent. Yes, we do work, we do have writing workshops, we do focus on the writing, the technical aspects, but the most important part, right, is the support from each other, the validation that what we are going through is not, I'm not imagining it. The terminology for someone with a STEM background, the terminology and the AHI community being able to define what it was that I was going through was also very important. Um, how has, what was it? In what ways has this experience impacted my research? Well, I definitely learned a lot from everyone. I was I was part of AHI as a fellow and then part of the leadership, and I had no clue how much knowledge I did not know regarding higher education. Higher education and engineering is different. And learning how others are navigating higher education in general really helped me understand more about the policies, more about what others are doing out there that is very important work that I didn't know about. And it helped me learn to start looking for my voice. Yes. Yeah, that's what I have.
Hey everyone. So my name is Ammy Sena, and I'm doing my psychology residency at Mass General Hospital, Harvard. And I actually come from a counseling psychology background. So I'm involved in kind of providing culturally competent, bilingual mental health services to the Latinx community and other communities of color. So given time, I'm just gonna share some tips, not necessarily kind of go through all the questions, but overall, I think one thing to really consider is pretty much what Mitzi was saying around, you know, we're all Latinx, right? So what would it mean for you in your personal statement to go beyond that or to go more critically within that identity or other identities that you have? And how does that connect to your personal statement or your personal story and narrative? One thing that even as a reviewer for last year's cohort, one of the things that they told us to really look at was, is there authenticity in this person's voice? Like when I'm reading this, does it sound generic? Does it sound like a story that other folks kind of have, or is this something that feels very personal and authentic to this individual? And now from hearing their narrative, I have a good understanding of where they stand in their positionality and how it impacts where they want to go and how our program aligns with that. So don't be afraid to find or to share a personal story or a personal narrative and have that be kind of the genesis of like everything else you start to share in your personal statements. And if you are worried that you're being too personal or not being too focused, like definitely open it up so others can review it and get their personal opinions on it as well. So be authentic in your voice and your experiences. And then also, one of the things that I realized even as I was reviewing was that a lot of folks didn't necessarily talk about the program and some of the things that the program actually did. So it was more generic, like, oh, I would love to be a part of this program because I want to be in higher ed, and, maybe repeat the mission statement. But I would say go beyond that, like really look at what this program is trying to do for you, right? Like it's trying to help you as a Latinx person in this space and it's providing you with professional development opportunities. It's connecting you to a group of peers that are super interdisciplinary. So what about that experience would be so meaningful for you that you like it really will propel your career and also help you in your own personal identity. And then also it's trying to give you some support around your like research, right? So really be intentional about how those different things that he's trying to do is very necessary for you and your development. So don't approach that superficially, because I think we want to see that like this program really aligns with what you want. And then lastly, the thing that I'll share is, so I applied for AHI 3 times and I didn't get it to my 3rd time. So talking about, speaking about competitiveness, and if it wasn't for my mentor who was like, try again, I probably would have been like, screw this. Like, they don't want me. I'm, taking it personal. But the reality is it's not personal. It's just, there's a lot of dope people doing really cool work. And, people, there's kind of like a strategy and a way of going about your statements. And I started my first year, right? So I wasn't as focused in my first year as I was in my 3rd year when I actually got AHI. So don't be, don't let that affect you. If this is your 2nd time, if this is your 3rd time, if this is your 4th time trying again, like just keep refining your statement, keep working at it, ask people for opinions about their statement, talk to other people who have been a part of the fellowship program, reach out to them. I feel like most people tend to be very friendly with this regard, and you can always hit me up too if you want to talk about like your personal narrative or personal statement. So, don't take it personal. keep trying, and it will be okay.
Hi everyone, I hope folks are doing well. My name is Jasmin Tobar. I go by she, her, ella. I am currently a lecturer at California State University in the Central American and Transborder Studies Department, which is the only department of Central American studies in the country. My trajectory is a little bit different, and I appreciate Amy because I also had a similar experience. I did a practitioner degree. So I actually was throughout my 4 years of my program, I was an educational director of a nonprofit at the same time that I was teaching part-time and doing transnational work. For me, I think one of the biggest challenges was as a social worker that wears many different hats. You know, I'm a community organizer, I do transnational work from my work is borderless, right? I do work here and I do work, refugee work in Mexico and Central America. When I first applied for AHI, I did not receive it. I didn't get it, very similar to Amy. And I think for me, I was in a very transitional period in my life. I was doing a lot, right? I have a lot of passions. You know, I am a daughter of Salvadoran war refugees. You know, my community in Central America has experienced genocide, war, and I dive a lot into conversations about healing, trauma, reconciliation after post-war. And at the same time as I am dealing with the ongoing crisis of migration in the region. So I think that when I first applied, I was having a really hard time narrowing down what I wanted to really focus on. And very similar to Amy, you know, I took the year to be, okay, you know, I really want this. I need community. I do plan to transition out of my director position. I want to dive more into academia and my research was applied. So at the same time that I was doing my research, I was implementing, working with system impacted migrant unaccompanied migrant youth from Central America who don't have any parents in the United States. And I was running a group home. So I took the time to just kind of navigate the process and narrate it. And just, I really had to remember, you know, why I'm here, why I want to do this work, why I need the connections, and most important, the community. So the second time around when I applied, I did everything I can to just sit down, listen to myself, narrow my experiences, and really figure out what is Jasmin, who is Jasmin, and what is the work that I want to do the next 10, 20 years. And for me, I don't really see it as work. I see it as a responsibility as a child or refugee. And I know right now there's a lot of things happening in the world, so it's very relevant to the conversations that are happening. So I think that when I wrote and I navigate and I wrote my personal statement and my research, I was, you know, I was in a part of my life that I finally was able to truly kind of focus on the things that I wanted to do and be more realistic. Because like I was sharing, I was doing a lot of different things at once. And the advice that I have for folks is if you don't get it the first time, keep going. I think that for me, when I got it the second time, it was one of the most amazing experiences. I went through so much that year. I was also narrating down. I was getting ready to defend. And if it wasn't because I had this community who was able to provide me the support, and most important, I think the community, I don't know if I would have been able to finish the year. You know, I had a lot going on. I was just transitioning from my full-time job. So I think if you folks just listen to the work that you're doing. I think oftentimes, and I think the first time that I was writing my statement, I was like, what do folks want to hear? I do so much. So I'm going to focus on only one aspect of my life, where in reality that we're intersectional people with a lot of different experiences, and we bring a lot of different things to the table. So I was just trying to be as authentic as possible. But I will end it with this. Although, you know, we do have to be authentic, you know, we need to let our voices be heard in our very unique research. And as a Salvadoran that has been in institutions, you know, I got my graduate degree at Columbia. I was the only Central American in the whole school. I know how hard it is to be in spaces when you're the only one, but definitely narrowing down and you know, focusing on mentorship is very important. I talked to a lot of my mentors in the past to kind of give me the best advice on how to really show the research that I was doing. Thank you all.
Oh my God. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Dominga, Amy, Jasmine, Veronica, I really appreciate y'all's reflections, your insight, the tips, and just, the opportunities and challenges, when it came to the application. And then once you were in AHI and what that looked like for you. I want to open the floor now to preguntas, questions, right? And I've already shared with the panelists that we, both Mitzi and I, are here as Mitzi said, background singers and dancers to our panelists who we want to make sure that they get the opportunity to address the questions. But if there's any questions that are a little bit more logistical, I definitely, between me and Mitzi, can tackle those. I do want to go ahead and address a question that just came in the chat, and I really do appreciate Gabriel. You're killing it with the questions and really good questions. And they actually speak personally to my heart and my soul because I am policy everything, right? Like policy and administration. That is where I'm heading because I'm very much still in the PhD in my final year, and I have I have a policy question in my dissertation. I plan to do policy work post the PhD, and that's the space that I'd like to kind of live in. And so, I love the question in terms of how AHI and the GSFP program speaks to the future policymaker, right, and the administrator. And if I put some information in the chat, but if there's still more, please feel free to unmute and go for it, or continue with the chat. But then let me see, somebody else just said something that I wanted to address. Oh, Yanira. I love your question about, since this fellowship is so competitive, are there opportunities programs that are not award-based at AHI for those who apply, may not be selected as a fellow, however, are looking for that academic community to learn, grow, and refine their research? Oh my God, what a great question. In the moment, there isn't any opportunities like this right now, right? Because the way the GSFP has ran and how we're running it this year, right? Like once you get selected, the leadership, which oftentimes were the fellows in the previous year or maybe a year prior to, are putting all their eggs in the basket for the programming and the building of the current cohort that we have, right? And so if we're not in application cycle mode, then we're in programming mode. And so, but to your point, I think that this is a huge, and maybe Dominga, you could speak to this because I know that you were our immediate past chair. But I think that's a great suggestion in terms of creating space for non AHI GSFP fellows to be able to kind of build community in a space like the GSFP, but not specifically, I mean, the fellows obviously can be part of that too, but creating more space to build that larger and bridge that larger Latina network. Dominga, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I think that one of the spaces that that is open to the community building are conferences. Right? There are a lot of higher education focused conferences, and within these conferences, there are little groups, networking groups that you should tap into. I know that there are funding to attend these conferences, but I found that the second community building area. In my experience, because I was in engineering, I went to go look for a community in the education department because they resonated more with my values and my research. But if you can attend conferences, if you can have your advisor pay for these conferences, this is where I recommend you that you look for folks that are doing similar research to you and connect before the conference and ask them, hey, I want to meet with you at the conference. I'm going to be attending to this conference. And hopefully from there, you will explore, you will find more additional community.
Yeah, Dominga, that's great. The conferences, absolutely. And now I'm just even thinking about ways that, you know, we can as an organization be able to maybe, you know, because not always your institution has the funding, right? Not always does, you know, getting to a conference can sometimes be a little bit tough depending on which institution you're with and, you know, a myriad of things. And so I'm just thinking about ways we could get creative with Zoom being, you know, this kind of bridge to all types of folk, no matter where you are, that how we can maybe create like some space for that too, even if it's like once a semester or something, you know, because I'm always about the not trying to be gatekeepers, right? Like if we have this vast network of folk who are all believe in, you know, Latinidad and folks in higher ed that are identified within Latinidad, then how can we like be that bridge, el puente, to the vast network that we've been able to create the last 20 years? So Yanira, I'm gonna think about that and I'm gonna take it back to my leadership team and we, I don't know, you probably stirred some beans in a pot, but I appreciate that.
I want to say really quickly too about some of these questions that are coming in the chat that are more logistical about like what point in the program do you have to be in to apply. A lot of that information is available on the GSFP website. So if you go to the AHI website and then you find the panel with information about the GSFP, everything should be clearly spelled out there, just so that you know, if that question doesn't get answered in this session or if we get a little confused, all of that information is available on our website.
If I could add to that, Mitzi, I wanted to share that being to get the most out of the program, I would recommend applying during your third year to make the most out of it because you know you have a better understanding of where you want to go in your research direction. You've eliminated all the courses that you know are mandatory to take, and now you're focused on your writing and your actual research. This is where the community comes in and shares their experience, shares what they use, how they use the instruments, and other type of like software support. So I would say the third, fourth year would be the best time to get the most out of it.
Okay, so there was a question on restrictions to Latino international students, and I know this past cycle, I don't think we had any, but Dominga, can you speak? I want to say no, but I feel like we need to maybe confirm with the staff, or Dominga, do you know, in terms of international students wanting to apply and maybe students on student visa, whether there are any like restrictions from them applying for the program and getting in?
We've never declined any
Okay,
applications from international students. I
okay,
think the issue was more of the logistics
yeah,
and stipend and all the
yep,
other admin stuff that needs to be double checked with the executive board
got it.
before you move forward.
Yep, that makes sense. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody want to come off mute and like just, I don't know, share anything? Oh, there we go. We have a hand raised. Gabriel, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, sorry, I just did not see where to unmute myself. I was just trying to figure out like how to frame this question. So partially speaking to what Dominga brought up about like sort of maybe wrestling with how to celebrate yourself and what you're doing, and then also thinking about dissertations and how they change, they evolve, the topics, the methods maybe. So I don't know if that matters, like if somebody was to get accepted and later on things change, if then the, you know, like the support will change, or does that make sense? And then Dominga, I don't know if you could speak a little bit more to what you were saying about like how you dealt with that of figuring out how to share what you're up to and all of that.
Yeah, so your research questions will always change for sure. Um, I remember my research questions changed a lot. You know, when we're reviewing those applications, we are aware that you're still processing, you're still making decisions, you're still learning about the challenges that you may encounter either with recruiting participants for interviews or access to information or even the IRB process. We're very aware of that. So we understand that changes will happen, that your methods may change, that your instrument may change. And I feel that the AHI community is there to support you and help you navigate through that process. Does it matter that when you apply, you select, you highlight qualitative, and then at the end you decide you want to do mixed methods? It doesn't matter. We just want to know that you have a plan, that you have a goal, and if changes come in, that we are there to support you. Did that answer your question, Gabriel?
It did, and it actually raised another one, because now I'm wondering, like, I'm sure people leverage the network in lots of different ways, and something that I'm thinking about is maybe during the data collection, or like if there are case studies that are going to be part of it, but I just don't know what we could really realistically expect from the network. Like if folks really do lean into it that much to the point where they're like, you know, using the network and people to get connected to who they need to talk to for interviews or to get access to data, that sort of thing.
I'm not sure about access to data, but we definitely support each other when we're recruiting participants. We support each other when we are getting ready to go into the job market. I know we have a great AHI alum. I can't believe I forgot his name, but he always shares his files and his experiences and how he documents everything. So we are, you know, that type of support network, and even share the flyers for recruitment, some of the research that studies that involve national recruitment. We're also there to help out with that. I think that for me, the most important part was, you know, we always talk about the healing process afterwards, the healing process after we've been through it and we're done. One of the things that I liked about this is that the healing process begins before, while we're still finishing, while we're trying to navigate the next steps. So Sergio, that's his name. Sergio. So, you know, like going back to the question, if I wanted to reach out to Sergio, I'd be like, yo, I need help preparing for this interview. Can you help me? He's more than ready. And he's like, yep, what time? So those type of support networks. And I see Vero has her hand up, so I'll let you go, Vero.
Yes, I was at the point where I was on the job market when I was participating in the program. And I want to say that folks helped me connect with people outside the department that were part of AHI to get me a better feel of what it was actually like to be part of the universities I was interviewing with. Because when you're in the job market, you get a very sterilized version. When you do your campus visit, it's very curated. So it might not be the authentic experience of Latinos, especially with my department that I ended up with. I am the only Latina in the department. And everybody else, except for one other person, is white. So I was able to connect with a Latino faculty member that was part of AHI, and they let me know their authentic experience. So I found it to be really helpful in making my decision of where I ultimately ended up, because I was able to connect with other Latino scholars that were there and could give me a better sense of the places I was interviewing with.
Jasmine, go ahead, Mama, we see you.
I just wanted to echo a second Vero's answer. I know that when I was doing applying for full-time positions, I know that both Sergio, and different folks helped me prepare for that interview. It was a Sunday, this is nothing to do with their commitment to Aki. It was during the weekend, but folks were so open to meeting with me on Zoom, helping me with just getting ready for that talk, that research talk. And that was really instrumental. And although I did take it upon myself to take time off after I finished school, but I know that now, because they were able to help me whenever I'm ready, I have those things ready to just start reapplying. Because right now I'm just, I've been working at my department for 5 years as an adjunct. So I just really want to echo that the support goes beyond the commitment of folks. Folks are really here for you.
Thank you, Jasmine, Vero, Dominga, for sharing that. And just real quick, I'm just going to share a personal experience también, Gabriel, in terms of the space and policy specifically. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Education Trust, but they're huge higher ed think tank in the policy world. And we have a VP, GSFP alum, who's VP of that organization. And we had an opportunity to meet off the record, non-AHI related, during a summer internship that I held. And the minute I told him I was AHI GSFP, he was like, oh, and I mean, instant familia, to the point where ahorita he's become Theo, William, like that's, and we talk because the Ed Trust is a space that I could see myself, post the doctorate space. And so, that's a relationship that I'm cultivating. That's a relationship that I care a lot about, because he has so much wisdom in that higher ed policy space. His trajectory is so like dope, his real lived experiences in the space. And so, I'm being intentional about cultivating it in the moment, right? Knowing that, maybe I'm not quite ready in this moment to like be, in that space that he's a leader of, but, in hopes that if that's where God places me post, that I've been able to kind of, build that relationship. We already have mutual like this mutual connection through AHI GSFP. So we had a foundational like conversación to kind of keep it, to start it all. And it's one that, I know I'll never forget. And I hope that, it kind of planted like a seed for him, like, yo, she's dope. Like, so it's to like Amy's point and everybody that just spoke, like, it's not gonna happen like overnight, pero because you become a part of this space, this community, and what it's done for other people and how it affects you, you already have this automatic kind of foundational familia, whether you know them or not, to kind of build off of and, enhance and better do the work that you want to do for the community. All right, we understand. How can we get this around? Okay, so there's a question. We understand this is a very competitive program. How can we get this type of support without the fellowship? So if I understand the question correctly, like how can we, like if you weren't a fellow of the program, then how can you get this type of support? Is that what the question is, Marissa? Okay, so, okay, go ahead, Jasmine.
I would say being a member, right? Because if you are a member of AHI, that is your network, right? You get the opportunity to network with folks across the country. You get access to webinars, and most folks who are part of the webinars are really open to connecting with folks across the country, coming to the conference. You know, I got to meet so many dope folks outside from my fellowship and people who were giving me advice on like my future trajectory and connection. So I think that's, I don't know if that answers the question, but I think that's one way of getting that network and that support.
I'm going to second that. There are a lot of workshops sent via email, a lot of opportunities of other formats of networking.
I'll drop the membership link in the chat, but outside of like becoming a member, Marissa, I would say like another way to Dominga's point, like a lot of these conferences have subgroups like the Latinx SIG of AERA, you know, other like sub communities that are based on like ethnicity, right, and race or discipline or what have you, right, to kind of be more intentional about the space that you're being in. These conferences have those things. And so these are things that you can also like follow their social medias, right? Like so that you can see the different events that they're hosting and attend and be able to like, you know, chat with some of the folk that are attending these spaces, because it's not just the people that are hosting, but también the people that are in attendance. Like right now we have 32 participants, right? So it's like that in itself is una comunidad, right? That you can like, oh, okay, like this person attended this, and reach out on LinkedIn and, you know, open up the discussion, you know, message them. Like I actually met a really good colleague having attended like this webinar, like a workshop thing that I wasn't even supposed to go to because they came through my timeline like minutes before it started. Got in, we broke out into groups. I had an opportunity to meet 3 or 4 of the people, and one of them, like, we do work in the same space, and she's so dope. She's nowhere near me. I'm in DC. She's all the way in like the other side of the country. However, she like we talk, right? Like we stay in community, and that was off of something that I had no intention of like being able to find, and I found it, right? So those spaces también. Go ahead, Jasmine.
Sorry, I think that was an accident.
Okay. All right. In the questions, and I think for those who are in the mental health space, the National Latinx Psychological. Oh, okay, that was Amy. Thank you, Amy, for sharing that. Yeah, that's super helpful. Okay, so we have a minute left. Go ahead, Mitzi, if we could go to the next slide, because I want yeah, go ahead, Mitzi. This is yours.
So to like really beautifully follow up on that last question, set us up. We do have a lot of current fellows that are presenting across a different range of conferences. So if y'all want to like take a picture of this real quick, because this could be a way that you start networking with some of us and like building community. We're really trying to kind of like announce our presence as we attend these different organizations and whatnot, these different conferences, so that we can get that community building outside of the fellows program. So if you're going to be around any of these conferences, please say hi, ask us out for coffee, network with us. Let's build community, and do also follow us on our socials. We try our very best to be active on social media, and it's a good way for us to connect, to keep in touch, and again to build that community, even outside of that fellows program. So all of that is just to say is that we really value community, even if it's outside of our fellows program, and that we really want to be like networking with you, communicating with you, and really just building, again, that community in these very trying times. It's going to be a difficult set of years ahead, so we all need to lean on each other as much as possible.
All right, final slide, and we are good to go. Okay, so buena suerte, mi gente. Like, good luck. Keep it up. Ask us for help. I put the email in the chat. We manage it, you know, and we try to get to all of the questions or concerns or what have you. So keep them coming. If we don't respond within like that 72-hour period, just nudge it again. It's a few of us that are managing that email, and sometimes it could get lost in the sauce. So don't take it personal. We want to respond. Definitely reach out via email. I think that'd probably be the best kind of most direct personal way to reach us. But también we shared our socials. Follow us. You could DM us. We have a great social media like committee, so like they'll respond quickly también. And stay connected. Like Ash is next week. If any of y'all on the line are at Ash and I find out that none of y'all came up to any of us, it's finna be some problems. No, I'm kidding. Please stay connected. We love to build community. So reach out if you see us. Definitely. We'd love to talk to y'all and get to know y'all in person or what have you. Pero
And thank you
again
so
to-
much for joining us. This
Yes.
was our first ever webinar that we put together. We had a little dream for it. We were like, let's try it. Thank you so, so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, Kayla. Thank you, everybody. Adiós, cuídense.